Hey, well, good evening and welcome everybody back to the Brothas-in-law. It's great to be back to discuss another topic this evening with you all. Tonight's topic will be cops mistake a blind man's cane for a weapon and then they arrest him. This took place back in October 31st of this year down in Lake City, Florida, in the county of Columbia County. And so we'll get into that. We'll talk about that, whether or not that's something, reasonable officers should have done in that and what went right, what went wrong in that case. So welcome everybody to the show. I see Tone and Jesus Love You jumped on already. Some more getting ready to jump on. So welcome everybody. My name is Corey Taylor. And my co-host tonight is Mr. Michael Bradley. He and I are both former law enforcement police officers. I was a Virginia State Trooper for 7 years, and Mike is retired Pleasanton, California police officer with 26 years of service. And Mike and I are both prior military. I did 21 years in the Navy, and Mike did 6 years in the Army. And we are both from Canton, Ohio, living on different coasts now, but still remain the best of friends. So welcome, Mike.
Well, hey, good to be back. Last show before the Christmas holiday,
Yes, sir.
I know folks are either going out of town next week or doing Christmas week with their families and stuff. I hope everybody have a safe holiday and be, like my dad always say, be forever vigilant.
That's right. That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
But it's a good one today because, we're going to talk about, was this reasonable? You know what I'm saying? I'm sure some people probably already seen this on YouTube, stuff like that. Where the old guy, go ahead.
I don't think it got the recognition that it should have. I think it's very important. I think it should have got more publicity than it did, Mike. I'll be honest with you. But as you'll see, it didn't meet that criteria to get that national coverage, though. Hey, but we'll talk about it anyways. It's a rather lengthy one. We're not gonna play the whole thing, obviously. We'll get into like I said earlier, what went right and what went wrong. But before we go ahead and jump into this video, if you're new to the show, go ahead and please hit that subscribe button down there. If you're watching us over on YouTube, in the bottom right hand corner, hit that YouTube icon down there and subscribe to us so you stay up to date with all our latest videos that we come out with. And if you're watching us over on YouTube, I'm not YouTube, sorry, on Facebook, go ahead and hit those like buttons over there. Hit the hearts, give us the hearts so that we get into the algorithm that keep pushing us out more to different people on their what do you call it, Mike? Their homepage, if you will, to get us out there. So without further ado, hey, what's up, Bubba Book? About time you got back on here, man. We missed you, dog.
Bubba Book.
Yeah. Good seeing you. So I'm gonna go ahead and set it up, Mike. So y'all all right there with me.
Yeah, so this is a video where officer stopped a guy because the officer said she thought he had a firearm in his back pocket. And apparently that was the reason for her stopping this guy. This guy apparently just walking down the sidewalk. And the way the video shows, it looks like this officer must have just saw him walking and either from a distance or something like that, thought that he had a firearm in his back pocket. And we're going to start from there and see how she handled it, how she stopped him, and how that stop went.
Yeah. All right, y'all. So get your questions ready because I know y'all gonna have some. So
yeah, definitely.
And as always, Mike, you see something that you want me to stop, man, just give me a shout.
All right.
Lake City, Florida. Mr. Hodges was carrying his cane, which he sometimes used to help him navigate while walking, in the back pocket of his jeans. And according to Deputy Godey, she initiated the stop because she believed it was a firearm.
Hi there. What's this in your back pocket? I saw you walking it.
It's a navigational age. What's the problem? You a tyrant?
Yeah, I am actually. What's your name and date of birth?
I don't have to give that unless.
Yes, sir. I was investigating.
You have reasonable.
Do you want me to put you in handcuffs right now? Yes, sir, I do.
What is your suspicion?
It looks like you're carrying a gun in your back pocket. I'm stopping to make sure you're carrying it properly. You don't have
you ensured that it's not a firearm?
No, you keep turning so I can't see it. You don't have to be to me.
Well, you're being one to me.
No, sir. I'm doing my job.
Am I detained?
Yeah, you are. What's your name and date of birth?
It does not matter.
Yes, sir, it does.
Do you have a crime?
Would you like me
Call
to
your
put you in?
supervisor,
He's right
please.
here.
All right.
After Mr. Hodges displays his cane to Deputy Godey, she informs him that he's still being detained and orders him to provide his name and date of birth. While Florida law allows licensed individuals to carry a concealed firearm, Section 790.053 of the Florida statutes says, quote, "It is unlawful for any person to openly carry on or about his or her person any firearm." Because the cane in Mr. Hodges' pocket was mostly visible, if Deputy Godey reasonably believed that it was a firearm, a court would likely determine that she had reasonable suspicion to initially detain Mr. Hodges for a suspected violation of this statute. Still, even setting aside for a moment the reasonableness of her alleged belief that the cane was a firearm, a court would almost certainly conclude that she could not continue to detain and attempt to identify Mr. Hodges after discovering he was not carrying a firearm. Under Section 901.151 of the Florida statutes, which is known as the Florida Stop and Frisk Law, quote,
Mike,
whenever any law enforcement officer of this state encounters any person under circumstances which reasonably indicate that such person has committed is other basis to continue the detention. Here, reasonable suspicion only existed as long as Deputy Godey believed that Mr. Hodges might be openly carrying a firearm. As soon as her investigation revealed that Mr. Hodges was carrying a cane and was in no way engaged in criminal activity, he could no longer be constitutionally detained.
You don't.
What's the stop for? For a walking stick.
So,
And it could look like a weapon. She asked you to present it, okay? Now she's asking me for ID. Okay. I don't need the ID unless there's reasonable articulated suspicion that I have committed a crime and committing a crime or about to do a crime. Sir, and her suspicion
He did research on that crime, on that law stuff, didn't he?
For your ID. Well, now she has verified that I am not armed. Okay. So there is no problem. Do you have your ID or not? I do have my ID, but you don't need it. Okay. Okay.
Got them ads. Huh?
I hate these doggone commercials.
Lightsabers are finally a reality, and you can own one. This new military flashlight is basically a lightsaber.
I don't know where his wallet is.
Where's your wallet at, sir? I don't have my wallet on me.
Okay, where's your ID?
Where's your ID at? Pocket. Which pocket? You are not allowed to search me.
It's in this pocket.
There you go.
Thank you.
I want your names and badge numbers.
Sergeant Randy Harrison assists Deputy Bodie in placing Mr. Hodges in handcuffs and searching his pockets. As the Supreme Court of Florida held in the 1990s.
All right, so that's pretty much it. And then they're going to get into all your
some case law stuff.
Yeah. So before we get into this, Mike, I want to ask our viewers a question before we dive into this. What does reasonable suspicion mean to you? What does reasonable suspicion mean to you?
Not probable cause.
Not probable cause.
Reasonable suspicion.
Right.
Reasonable
What
suspicion.
does that mean to you?
You know what I'm saying? And that's really a, well, I hate to say a common sense question, because reasonable suspicion to an officer with specific training and experience could be different than reasonable suspicion from just a random citizen who doesn't have the training and or experience of a police officer. So I will say that, I will point that out. But basically, reasonable suspicion, it still could be an opinion of reasonable suspicion, still could be interpreted fairly, I think, by a random citizen. You see what I'm saying? So, folks, yeah, that is a good question. What does Buck says means that they can detain but cannot search? Yeah, that's kind of that goes along the lines. Anybody else got some good opinions or knowledge about what they think reasonable suspicion is? You know, police need reasonable suspicion to stop you. I should say they need reasonable suspicion to stop and detain you. A consensual contact is different.
Right. I think too, reading up on this and brushing up on things when it comes to reasonable suspicion. I mean, that's a lot of that is really left up to interpretation, because I think two factors playing. One plays into your regular human side, common sense. We always say let common sense prevail. Could that really be something there? Let's roll with and say, okay, let's give her that benefit of the doubt. She did assume that or perceive that was a weapon in there.
Okay.
In his back pocket.
Let's do that.
She goes.
Now, stay with us, folks. Stay with us on this, as we're gonna go real slow.
Right.
Like you say, Corey, let's assume that she did think initially when she saw him, she thought that he had a firearm in his back pocket, something that is illegal in that state, to have a clearly visible firearm carrying on your person in that state. Let's assume that. So that'll give her the reasonable suspicion right there, because initially that's what she thinks.
Right.
Now continue. What's the next step, Corey?
Now I'm going to make contact with this citizen. Hey, excuse me, sir. Mind if I stop and talk to you for a few minutes and see what's going on? Just want to make sure everything's all right. Hey, yeah, no problem. What's going on? Like he did. What's going on? What's the problem? So, I think you have a weapon, a gun sticking out of your back pocket. Like, it's no gun. It's a walking stick. I'm legally blind. Now, reason suspicion, right? Okay. He then pulls it out. See? It's a walking stick. Now, does she have the right to continue on with the investigation, or does it come to a complete halt? Because now, according to what was that case law? Hiley versus what was it? Shucks, I lost.
Hibble versus Nevada.
Hibble, yeah, Hibble versus the 6th Judicial District Court of Nevada.
Right.
The Nevada statute states it requires a person detained by an officer during a Terry stop to identify himself by providing his name. Now, only thing he had to do at this point was just give his name. Right. Because once she determined, okay, now this is not a weapon, at that point she had no right to ask him for ID. Now that's the difference between asking for a name and then asking for your identification. Right. So if I just ask your name, hey, well, what is your name? My name is Corey Taylor. Okay, cool. That's all I need to give you. If there keep going down that road, all right, it is a weapon. Now,
that's a different ball game, right?
That changes it now.
That changes things.
Right. Now, hey, there's a weapon now. Now, what is your identification? Let me see some identification. Well, I already have your name. Now I can ask for what? Date of birth, social security number, address. The whole list of your ID, what all IDs you, other than just your name. Right. So, but once she determined that there was no weapon, this was done and over.
Yeah, that's my opinion. I mean, we right here, because it's like, okay, you stop her. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that maybe from a distance, maybe you thought that was the firearm. Okay, you have the authority to stop and initiate an investigation. How you doing? Like you said, Corey, how you doing, sir? I need to talk with you. It looks like you have a possible firearm sticking out your pocket. That's the start of an investigation. Those words are the start of your investigation. So you're okay up to that point. Now, how she thought that was a gun in his back pocket, I don't know. It looked clearly like a walking stick or folding stick or some kind of stick out of the back pocket. It didn't look like a firearm. Okay. So, but once he showed the firearm, what's the purpose of continuing with that?
Right.
What's the purpose of that? Okay, I've determined that this is not a firearm. I was mistaken. Sorry, sir. Let me brush you off and send you on your way. I clearly see that if you have any questions or something why I stopped you, feel free to ask. I'm here to answer any questions you may have. But I am no longer stopping or detaining you. You are free to leave. I have confirmed that this is not a firearm. This is clearly a walking stick, and that's it. I'm done. See you later. Bye.
Right. Bubba
now,
Bug.
They pushed it. I think the officers pushed it into something way more than it needed to be.
Yeah.
I don't understand why. I'm done with that at that point. Once I see that, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're done here.
Yeah.
That's me. If I was the officer, that's me. That's how I would handle that situation. We wouldn't have got nowhere near an arrest, put your hands behind your back, put you in the back of my patrol car, we going to jail. We wouldn't have got nowhere near that.
Bubba Buck said, would you guys have allowed him to pull what he had out of his pocket, out of his back pocket? I mean, reaching to a possible firearm would not have went down that way. True.
Very good question.
But I think she knew that wasn't a gun. I think she crossed the point where there was no return. So she had to keep going on with this bull crap she was doing.
See, and some of these officers need to get that out of their mind. Look, if you determine it ain't nothing there, it ain't nothing there.
Right. But
it's okay to say, you know what? Sorry, sir, made a mistake. Thought you had a gun in the back pocket. Sorry for bothering you. See you later. Bye. Nothing wrong with that, folks.
Yeah, I think I probably would not have allowed him to reach back there behind his back like that. I would have just said, hey, hold on. I'd have grabbed him to slowly turn around. Let me just see. I would, hey, you mind if I pull it out and reach and pull it out, identified it was just a walking stick. Hey, sir, I'm sorry for bothering you. It just looks suspicious. No harm, no foul. Have a nice day. And let it roll with that. But no, I probably would not have let him do that, because if it were, that's a good point, Bubba Buck. If it were a weapon, yeah, it would definitely ended a lot differently than what it did.
Yeah, of course. And that's a good question, Bubba Buck. But you know what? He pulled it out so fast.
She might not have had the time to react.
To even react to that. Tactfully, yes. As a police officer, I don't want you going in your pockets with your hands closed. I don't know what you're getting ready to pull out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Tactfully, I don't want you to do that. But he did that so fast that I don't think she had time to be tactful and address that. Right. Or maybe she didn't care. Maybe she saw what it was, before he even pulled it out. Once she got close enough to him, maybe she saw what he was grabbing when he pulled it out. You know what I'm saying? But I just think that these officers in this case, I just think they pushed this into something way more than it needed to be. But Corey, and this is what we always preach to citizens when they come in contact with police. What I admire about this guy was that even though he verbally resisted, in other words, what I'm saying is he challenged them what they were making him do. He told them clearly that I don't think this is legal. You can't do this, that, and the other. But what he didn't do was physically resist. And what do we always say on this show? Even if you feel that the officer is doing something wrong, don't physically resist them. Because if I'm doing something to you, if I'm going to arrest you, if I'm going to search you, or whatever I'm going to do as an officer, I have it in my mind that I'm legally doing what I'm doing. And if you resist me, I'm going to overcome that resistance in the best way I can. You see what I'm saying? We don't want citizens to get hurt. We don't want officers to get hurt for that matter, but we don't want anybody to get hurt. We want you to move on. Okay. So he did the right thing by not physically resisting, and he turned around and he gonna sue the pants off of him. That's how you handle it, folks.
And so Bubba Buck says, you know, what if this was him, this is what he would have said. He would have said, hey, sir, the reason for the stop is because I think you have a possible firearm. Don't reach for anything. And if it's not, you're free to go, then that's what I would have said. Yeah, and that's pretty much it, man. I mean,
and that's reasonable.
Yeah, that's reasonable, and no harm foul. Hey, officer, no problem. You know, and if that happened to me, I'd have been just like that. But that's why it's important for you as a citizen to know your rights, know what you can say, know what you can do. Yes, it's going to take a little research, and you have to dig up, different case laws and things of that nature. But it's better to be safe than sorry, and knowing if you're being violated or not. I mean, that's important. As an officer, that's the last thing on my mind is always to not making sure I never violated anybody's rights. Right.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I used to train guys, Mike, I always say, if you are uncertain of anything, before you do anything, if you can't get a hold of a supervisor, you can't get a hold of a senior trooper on your shift because they may be tied up or whatever, best thing you can do is let that person go. With the exception if they had, active warrants and things of that nature, then you can detain them, keep them there until you can get somebody out there to verify and check whatever that you need and send them on down the road. But if you have any inclination of whether or not you should arrest that person, you should search that person or whatever the case may be, let them go. Just let it go. Let it go, because soon as you start guessing and wondering, trying to figure out if you should or shouldn't, that's when you mess up. And so that was always key that I always told my trainees coming out of the academy when I had to ride with them for an additional 2 months. That's the point that I always drove home to them, man, because once you cross that road, and like these officers here, man, you can't come back from it. It's very hard to come back from. Now, from what I understand, Mike, the female officer, I think she just got suspended for a couple of days and has to go through retraining. The sergeant was demoted. Now, and that's the crazy thing. This guy was a sergeant. He was a supervisor. So, he should have known better. Once she identified that was not a firearm, your reasonable suspicion is gone. There's nothing to be suspicious of now. So this man should have been left go, but he didn't intervene properly and didn't know the law himself. And he's a supervisor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they were dealt with. They were dealt with. Folks, sometimes cops do make mistakes. We ain't saying that officers are perfect. Right. We ain't saying that at all. But again, I can't say this enough. Even if you don't think that they are doing the right thing, let them go ahead and do what they're going to do and sink themselves for real. Because it's all about being safe and not showing an officer that you are going to physically resist it. That we don't want that. And one thing, I saw this guy on another video at YouTube. He had made a statement that I guess in Florida, it was in Florida. He said that it is legal for a citizen to resist an unlawful order. And that's not the first time I've heard that. I've also heard that from somebody else. And if that's the case, in my opinion, that is a horrible law. Because like I said, if I'm an officer and I'm doing something and I thoroughly believe that what I'm doing, I have a legal right to do, and you fight me, I'm going to overcome your resistance one way or another, because that's what I'm supposed to do. You see what I'm saying? So we don't want you to, we would never encourage you to resist officers physically. You can say all day verbally that I don't have to do this, I don't have to do that. You say it all day, as long as you're not physically stopping an officer from doing something. Now, that's a tricky thing, because some people, Corey, will look at that and say, what if the officer is beating the mess out of me? You know what I'm saying? Well, typically an officer is not going to beat the mess out of you unless you're doing something to resist. You know what I'm saying? Beating the mess out of, for lack of better words, that sounds extreme, but I say that loosely, okay? But if I'm using physical force on you, it's because I believe that I'm legally able to do that because you are trying to resist me in some physical way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What you say to that, Corey? What you think of that?
Let me answer this one. I still got it fresh in my head. Jesus Love You says, why weren't they fired and banned from law enforcement for life? I'm not sure if
that might be extreme.
I think that would be a little bit too extreme. Did they harm him? Did they bring physical harm to him? No. Did they cost the guy embarrassment? Did they violate his rights? Yes. But is that still grounds for
that's grounds for suspension and retraining?
Definitely for suspension and retraining first. Yeah.
I think that's
I would try to say, and I mean also too, Jesus Levy, I think that I would also have to look at their history, what their any complaints and things of that nature.
Any sustained complaints,
any sustained complaints and things of that nature. Right? If this was just a one time, oh shoot, yeah, I messed up type deal, then okay, let's retrain first. And then once they got retrained, you're going back through the FTO phase again for an additional 2 months. And then, hey, maybe out of the office, then you start, hey, well, we're going to do quarterly training with this on them. Every quarter, we do training on your constitutional rights, your Fourth Amendment rights, and things of that nature to ensure that this does not happen again. If it did happen again, then yep, you're gone, and you should never be in law enforcement again. So,
and I see what Jesus Loves You saying too. It's like, what if next time they take it to killing someone or something? Yeah, but that's like saying I'm arresting somebody for shoplifting a sweater from the mall, but next time if I let them go on a ticket or a site release at the scene, next time they might come in and shoot up the place. You see what I'm saying? So I can't really jump that far ahead and say, well, they might shoot somebody next time. That's why they need to be trained, because they need to turn around and back it up and say they need to be retrained on what they are supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? And if it continues to be happening that way, that then you could take more and more action. I agree with that. But I ain't going, not if this is the first incident where they did something. Do I think they were doing something malicious? No. I think they need to be retrained on police authorities and law as far as detaining people. That's what I think they need to do. Do I think they need to be fired and never be a police officer again in their life? That is I think that's extreme, because that's like, police work covers such a broad range of things that I can't just take it this one thing and say you don't need to be a cop. And I mean, not this thing. There are some
things too. I think that's, you have to look at each situation case by case, because that's such a strenuous job anyways. Like, you're human, you're gonna make a mistake, right?
Sure.
But the thing
is like you say, let's hope you don't make the mistake and shoot and kill someone.
Right, shoot and kill. I mean,
sure, of course.
If that's the case, I mean, every time somebody makes a mistake, then you're just fired. We'll never have police officers.
True. I've made some mistakes in my career. Sure. When it comes to the law, you know what I'm saying? I've made some mistakes, learned the right way or right way to do it. and I learned from my mistake. So you gonna make some.
I hear Jesus love you. I mean, it's just it's a slippery slope. I mean, I think a lot. I think that's why they didn't get fired, because they looked at who these individuals are. They looked at, did they have any prior, hiccups, where they were in their training, how long they've been on for it. Now, quite honestly, yes, the guy was a supervisor. He was demoted. He can't go up for any promotions for the next 2 years.
That's big. That's big.
That's huge. He's getting hit in the pockets. You're right. I mean, he's really suffering because he's getting hit in the pockets because he's been demoted. So, I mean, I think her punishment could have been a little more harsh than what. I don't think she got like 2 days suspension and then going through retraining. I mean, she should have got at least a couple weeks suspension out of there and with retraining and then going back through FTO phase again. But next time, I don't. Would they shoot somebody next time? I don't know. I don't know these individuals, but
let's hope not. Let's hope
not. But I think the probability of that happening would be slim because they know now they're under the microscope.
Yeah, and they know now. Well, assuming that whatever happens with this, they know that was a mistake and they can't do that. You see what I'm saying? Once you know that as an officer, now if you continue to keep doing the same thing over and over, well, that clearly shows that you are not receptive to the training or retraining that we keep sending you to. You see what I'm saying? So now you start and cross that line of you can't do this job. You see what I'm saying?
Right. And then get to the point where then there'll be, either you go ahead and quit or we're going to volunteer you to quit. right. And you get fired and then, your career as a law enforcement is over. So, but this is a good discussion. I mean, because like I said earlier, I think citizens need to know these things. Yes, you got to do your homework and do your research on, different types of case law, but and understand every state is different. What would this play out the same way here in Virginia? Would this play out the same way in California where you are, Mike? Probably not. I mean, I could, clearly I wouldn't stop. I know what a walking stick looks like. Now, could this have been a weapon? Maybe we know, Mike, that there are some smart criminals out there who can turn an ink pen into a single shot, right?
Oh, sure.
Are we gonna go around and say, "Oh, well, that pen looks, reasonably suspicious"? Right? You know what I mean? I clearly, I think it was Jesus love you said earlier. She definitely has some horrible eyes. She need to get her eyes checked.
Tone makes a really good comment with Jesus loves you. Brings up a case in California. Officer fails FTO training in one city, reapplies in another city and is hired, then gets into a shooting and kills 2 people. And I know what case you're talking about, Tone. That happened not too long ago. And yes, as for first part of that comment is officers don't make 3 FTO training in one agency. They end up applying to another agency and end up actually passing the FTO program in another agency. Yes, that happens all the time, Tone, tell you the truth. Because if you fail the FTO program for a specific reason in one agency, if you go to another agency, their FTO program might be slightly different. That subject might be slightly different that you failed in this agency, but you may not have to do it this way in another agency. So oftentimes you'll go to another agency and pass that FTO program because their standard is a little different, So that's why that happens quite a bit, Tone. Now, if an officer gets into a shooting, well, if he failed FTO program in the agency that he was in before, that would come into play because it depends on why he failed FTO program. You know what I'm saying? If he failed the FTO program because he couldn't understand when to shoot and when not to shoot, you know what I'm saying? Or something along those lines, and he goes to another agency and gets into a shooting that is a wrongful death type of a shooting, then yeah, that's going to come back and bite the agency that hired him in the ass probably too, as much as the officer. So yeah, it still balances out a little bit because all that stuff will come into play. A defense attorney will eat that up in court. That, oh wait, this officer, he failed the training for this particular reason here, but he comes here and does the same thing. You see what I'm saying? And look what happened. So it's not that they just escape, but that does happen quite a bit, Tone. Officers get fired. The way it usually happens, like Corey was saying, is we're going to ask you to resign, but if you don't resign, we're going to have to fire you. You know what I'm saying? And if you get fired, that part is less likely that you're going to get hired somewhere else if you get fired from a law enforcement agency versus a resignation. A resignation, oftentimes, Tone, in these and Corey, you can speak to this. Oftentimes in these FTO programs, it really may not be something very extensive or dangerous that they failed the FTO program for. It could be something like you can't write a report, or you don't understand how to make traffic stops, or something along those lines. Those things can be corrected. It takes some people more time than others to get it corrected, but those things can be corrected. And that's why they let you resign sometimes, because they don't want to completely shut the door on you not being an officer somewhere else, if that's what you choose to do. Right. So it all depends on what they were. It all depends on what they were, what they failed out of FTO program for. What you say, Corey?
No, I think you're right on. What would cause me to have to fail someone out of the FTO program? Well, their level of competence, their level of being able to do the job. Are you going to get yourself, for example, great young man, very nice. He just couldn't do the job. He did not have the situational awareness that officers need. He didn't have the command of authority. Not being arrogant, not being a bully or a butthole or anything, but the present. When he walked up on scene, he didn't have control. And we said in all our videos, we talk about being in control of the scene. Right.
Command presence.
Right. Command presence. He didn't have that. Not being able to testify in court, not having the confidence of the judges when you bring things. And I tell you, that's the first thing. If you can't testify in court and articulate yourself in court, those judges are going to make a call back to the office and tell them, hey, you need to fix them. Because they're bringing, foolishness into my courtroom, and I don't like that. Those judges are quick to get on that phone and make that call to the supervisors. So it all boils down to level of confidence. Do you have confidence in this individual that they can perform these duties? And this young man just couldn't. He's nice guy, totally nice guy, Mike, but didn't have the confidence to do the job. And at the end of the day, he went on ahead and resigned. Even though we got him through FTO, but then had to put him back on FTO because of his testimony in court, presenting his cases was just, I don't know how to make it any simpler when it goes to testify in court. You write your own notes from the stop, right? And you have your own evidence that you collect. And if you can't, articulate those things in court, then I don't know what else to do. So long story short, he ended up getting back on it and end up resigning. Not sure what he's doing now, but again, like I say, a super nice guy, but just couldn't cut the mustard. So again, like to your point, but to your point, Mike, yeah, it depends. And is it the same at every agency? I don't know. I thought we had probably one of the toughest programs that you go through. But I don't know how it is in any other county or state, what their programs are like. And I thought, now correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, and our viewers, but I thought laws was passed in the House a couple of years ago that was one area they were trying to fix. Like if you got fired from one agency, you couldn't go to another agency. Something
I heard about that, and that's why I say fired versus resign, because I do believe that, for instance, someone could fail the FTO program because they can't find their way around the city. They can't memorize the streets. They don't know where they're going.
I had that too.
Call from point A to point B, and you have no clue how to get there. And after being shown how to get there over and over, you're just not picking up the geography of the city that you're trying to work in. That'll get you fired from failed from FTO program. But does that mean you shouldn't be a cop somewhere else? No, it just means you can't be a cop in this city because you can't figure out where you're going. Okay. Right. But you might go to the next city over or some other city and have no problem with that. You see what I'm saying? So because there's so many reasons that somebody could get failed from FTO, that alone in general should not be enough to say, well, if you failed FTO program in this agency, there's no way you're going to make FTO programs in any other agency.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Right. I think that's a bit extreme, and that should not be something that you just in general say that has to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Hey, y'all, real quick, go ahead, hit that like, share, and subscribe button wherever you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook for us. We want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. We're talking about cops making a mistake of a blind man cane for being a weapon, and he was arrested. And we're just sharing our thoughts and concerns about this and whether or not it was what a reasonable officer should do. I guess the end conclusion is nope. This is not what a reasonable officer would do.
I wouldn't do that.
No, in this situation, it's, and again, we'll drive that point home that, hey, this is something everyone needs to know. What your Fourth Amendment rights are. When can an officer search you properly, and when is it illegal for them to search you?
Thanks, Steve. Love you.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. Much love. And so we want you to be safe, right? I always say this: a two-way street.
That's always
above all. I always say it's a two-way street. There's a way an officer is supposed to act, and then there's a way that we are to conduct ourselves too. We do these things, nobody's going to get hurt. You know your constitutional rights. You know if they're overreaching their boundaries. Stay calm. Fight the battle in court like this gentleman did, and now he's going to be, probably getting a nice little chunk of change from the city, because I'm sure they're going to settle this.
And you gotta weigh stuff,
You gotta weigh your options.
Right. Don't even if the law is, even if you know the law and you know that what an officer is doing is not legal, as far as something like, okay, let me see your ID. Is it worth refusing to give him your ID and causing him or her to take more action or go further with their contact? Or is it just worth hey, here's my ID? You know what I'm saying? For me personally, I'd rather just give the officer my ID, because I ain't gonna make that officer be pushed and think that have to do something more with me than they have to do. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's more worth my peace of mind to go home at the end of the stop. You see what I'm saying? It's more important for me to go home. I can go down and file a complaint later. You know what I'm saying? But for now, I'm trying to get home. Okay.
Right.
I'm not trying to get tied up into something just because I feel like I don't have to show you my ID. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, and again, that's one of those things, Mike, like you always say too, you know, and I think you just said here a second ago that, you know, if you know you didn't do nothing, then what's the problem? Now, obviously, we know you have constitutional rights.
Sure.
You know, but do you, I mean, I think a common decency plays a role in it. Hey, you have reasonable suspicion that I did something. I know I didn't do nothing. I don't have no weapon on me. Hey, sir, you mind if we get some ID on it? Hey, not a problem. Here you go. Although I know you don't need to do it, but to give you peace of mind. So, like you said, Mike, I can leave and go home. I have no problem showing you my ID. Right now, again, like you said, Mike, at the end of this, I know where I need to go to make a plan. Hey, that was an illegal stop. He asked me for my ID. He did not need to do that. Once he determined there was no reasonable suspicion, he had no further use of me. I was no longer detained according to the case law. And I'm going, and you'll be hearing from my attorney. Click.
Yep. Clip,
and that's it. And that's it. You know, so and that's what we mean, in answering the questions, for the CALM acronym: comply, answer questions, listen, and move on. Hey, whatever, I'll give you an answer because I didn't do nothing. Now, different story if you did do something. You're doing dirt, like I think the video we're going to talk about next week, Mike.
None of this applies to you if that's the case,
right? So. Hey, but let us know what you think about this video here. Did we articulate reasonable suspicion good enough for you that everybody's got an understanding that you can go and share this with friends and family? Let us know in the comments below. If you have a video that you like Mike and I to break down, hit us up on Facebook, on the Brothas-in-law Facebook page. And we'll get it on the show. Thank you to Mr. John Baptiste, who gave us his video, sent us his video to talk about. So thank you for that, sir. We appreciate it. And we'll wrap this up for tonight. We will be back. Oh, shucks. Let me look at the calendar. Because next week is Christmas.
29th, maybe? The 29th? The 29th will be back?
Yeah. We'll be back on the 29th for the last show of the year. 2022 will be in the books, baby.
It'll be in the book.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
We say Merry Christmas on this show.
Yeah, we say Merry Christmas on here.
Well, if y'all offended, I apologize, but that's how we roll. You know what I'm saying?
That's how we roll. That's how I was raised. So I celebrate Christmas. So happy holidays to you all. Merry Christmas. God bless you. We love you. And there's nothing you can do about it.
All right, y'all take care.
That's right.
Thanks for doing that.
Hey, Carol.
Tone been a long time viewer. We appreciate you, Tone.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you.
God bless everybody.
All right. Peace out.